Welcome to the Marriage Forum. My name is Susan Allan, and I'm the founder of the Marriage Forum Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. And for 15 years, we've been teaching people just like you how to create the most beautiful, peaceful, joyous marriages and how to transform difficult relationships or create peaceful divorces. So whatever you prefer, whatever outcome you've been looking for, whether it's learning how to deeply understand your partner and your family, or for some of you it's the opposite. You just wish that you could have that level of cooperation and intimacy and joy in your family that you've been looking for. Is that right? And you know, some of us have a challenge where either we try to force people to do it our way, we try to insist that they do it this way, and you know what happens. Eventually they get resentful and they retaliate or they refuse. So you've got a very short shelf life with trying to force people to do what you want. And then others of us have the opposite challenge, which is that we're tempted to give in because we just want peace. And the reason that this is a nonprofit corporation is because we wanted to be able to support people all over the world with these basic skills that have remarkable results. 15 years ago, I realized that I simply needed a new way to communicate with people. And the more that I worked with those of you from all over the world, the more I found out that you were having the same kind of challenges that we were having. So whether we translated this into people working with us in English, if you can hear me and understand what I'm saying, that's all that you need to do. We do this over the phone. But then people were translating it either to their families in America or all over the world, from English into Spanish, Italian, German, French, Farsi, Hebrew, Cantonese, Mandarin, Russian, you name it. We have the same needs as human beings. We all have the same basic needs for love, affection, respect, to be understood, to be heard, to be able to connect at the deepest and most intimate levels. Would you agree? And what we call love is when your needs are as important to me as my own needs. That having your needs get met are so important to me that I don't consider my needs first and only, but that in a deeply joyous, intimate merging of two into one, it's a mutuality. And from the thousands and thousands of people that we've worked with, we find that most people don't have this experience. And really, it's not because people don't want to provide that to you. It's just that you haven't been taught to motivate and inspire them. So does that make sense? So how do you co-create this life together? How do you co-create an intimate, joyous relationship? Well, the first thing, we call it the 6-part conversation. And the 6-part conversation that I developed 15 years ago allows me to calm myself down before I speak, using a technique called self-empathy. Then I calm you down if you're the person that I want to have a deeper level of communication with, and that's called empathy. Then when I speak, I make sure I'm never angry, I'm never frightened, I'm never sad when I communicate, because you know what happens with that, you know how that works. It doesn't. So you make sure that you've got this ability to calm yourself down before you communicate. This is really key. Then when you've calmed your listener, then your listener is willing to listen, right? Just because someone's sitting in front of you doesn't mean they're listening. Now, I hope you are. But it doesn't mean that in our personal lives, everybody really wants to hear what we say. You've heard the expression tuning out, right? So you know perfectly well that we tune each other out on a regular basis. But if you feel heard and if you feel understood, you're not going to be that likely to do that. So then you use part 3, self-expression, part 4, reflection and clarification, making sure you've really been understood, and then solution. And please send me an email so I can send you the file for the 6-part conversation. It's been really, really helpful. And we have other videos that you may be able to see already on YouTube and more that we're going to be adding that will give you the explanation of the 6-part conversation. And we have about 160 videos that we've done already explaining all the different aspects of the HEARTSPACE system that I'm explaining today, and the Marriage Forum and the Divorce Forum. So the Marriage Forum, you'll see we have themarriageforum.com. And for the Divorce Forum, we have thedivorceforum.com. And we have 3 different ebooks that you may find really helpful as well. If you're most interested in loving relationships, then it's Ask the Love and Relationship Coach. And I've been writing that column for the Santa Barbara Family Life magazine for about 8 years. You can find all of those articles archived at SB for Santa Barbara, familylife.com. Or you can email me a request and I'd be delighted to send you the ebook. It would be my pleasure. And you can also find it at the Amazon library. If you're more interested in a deeply intimate, loving marriage, then the second ebook is called The Merry-Go-Round. And you'll be able to find The Merry-Go-Round again at the Amazon library, or send me an email and I'll be delighted to send it to you. And the third one is 101 Divorce Secrets, a Survival Guide, which was written with the help of many, many of the key divorce experts in Southern California. And you may not realize it, but Southern California is the hotbed of divorce of every place in the world, and that's because we've got Hollywood here. And in Hollywood, everybody's really just like you and me, except they have so much more pressure on them. And they're right in the spotlight all the time. And I've worked with a lot of people in Hollywood, and honestly, they have the same exact desire you and I have for peace and joy and to be heard and to be understood. Yet, because of the circumstances of their career, it makes it that much more difficult to have a consistent relationship with one partner. Now, you'll learn in each of these 3 books and in all the different trainings that we offer, and all these eventually 160 videos on YouTube, you'll learn how to be peaceful, how to be heard, how to hear others, and more important than anything else, how to motivate and inspire others so that your needs and their needs can be met. You know, the HEARTSPACE system is all about motivating your partner so that you can live in peace. Motivating your partner so that if you decide you want to stay in a monogamous, lifelong relationship, you can do it. If you decide that you want to become parents and co-create parenting in a loving, peaceful, cooperative way, you can do it. If you decide that you really want to get a divorce, you still, if you have children, you still have to co-parent, right? You don't want to put yourself in a position where a judge, a stranger, is going to make decisions for you. You want to be able to create peace. Is that right? This year in Europe and America, it's amazing. You may not even believe it, but the divorce rate is well over 50%. Now, no one gets married with the intention of getting divorced. And as part of the HEARTSPACE system, we have developed skills that allow 100% reconciliation if even one of you, one spouse, one partner, is willing to learn and use these skills. Now, you probably wonder why that's true. How can you possibly have 100% reconciliation? Well, I can tell you lots and lots of stories. I can demonstrate it for you, but think of it from a conceptual point of view. In countries where you marry for love, where you pick your own partner, you know what your needs are, your partner knows what his or her needs are, and when you find someone who does that with you and for you, and you do it reciprocally, the relationship is wonderful, and you decide you want to spend the rest of your life with this person. We have tools and skills in the HEARTSPACE system that allow you to get back to that place. Because according to the home schedule of stressful events, divorce is the second most stressful experience that you can have in a lifetime. And the first most stressful is the death of a spouse. That's how important committed relationships are. They get you where you live. You know, I've worked with people who are reverends, who are religious experts, rabbis, and they find their own emotional challenges in an intimate relationship or marriage that's not working to be excruciating, in spite of the fact that they have a very deep spiritual connection to God. And so nobody wants divorce. If you allow us to teach you, either over the phone in coaching, which we do all over the world, or in any one of our 100 and something videos that we're going to be uploading to YouTube from time to time, or that you may have seen on Santa Barbara TV, you're going to find how to calm yourself down before speaking, how to calm your partner so that you can really be heard, how to express yourself in a loving and intimate way, and how to generate a co-creation of solutions, co-parenting, cooperative financial decisions, all of this. Now, the alternative is what we call the 7 stages of divorce, which may look a lot like your 7 stages of marriage. So we have a very cute cartoon that a lot of you have told us you really enjoy looking at. The first stage can be panic, where you are just in a state of panic because you can't believe that what used to be a wonderful relationship now is causing you so much suffering. And you must learn how to, again, calm yourself down before speaking. Then there's denial, where you just can't believe that this is so stressful. And so instead, you want to just not think about it. Not even think about it. And that's fine as long as you force yourself to return to thinking about it, you know, an hour later, a few hours later. Because if you have a problem, you can't let yourself get stuck in denial. You have to take action. Things have to be done. Then there's agony, where you realize either that your spouse has been unfaithful, or you have a terrible financial problem, or perhaps there's an illness that has to be dealt with, or maybe it looks like you're on the road to divorce. And so if you're automatically triggered to agony, great suffering, you have to be able to get back to the present, get back to being here with yourself, with the situation, in order to make intelligent decisions of what to do. Because you've got to take action, but the correct action, the most effective action. Here's where we talk about doing 100% of what works and 0% of what doesn't work. I can tell you that I have countless clients who've been able to transform their marriage, transform their intimate relationship into what we call the tantric lock, where there's so much love and so much passion. There's no room for a third party. there's no longer room for any kind of infidelity. And the relationship gets an entirely new, basically a new lease on life. Then, if you go back to the 7 stages, panic, denial, agony, rage is the 4th one. Some of us just have that response that if something is not going your way, your automatic response is to be angry. And again, 100% of what works, you know, rage is not on that list. You must master the ability to calm yourself down before communicating in any way. I teach my clients, if you want them to get on the phone and have that conversation, don't. Figure out what you're going to say first. Don't do it in anger or in haste. You will regret it. Then finally, after you've been learning panic, denial, agony, rage, and how to bring yourself out of that, you have the epiphany. And for everybody, epiphany is the same. It's where you realize you can make a difference. You can have a different kind of outcome. You don't have to do the same thing you've been doing for years or even decades. You know, some of our clients have been married for 20 or 30 or 40 years to the same person, not a series, to the same person. And they say, oh my goodness, if I had only learned this in the first minute that I was married, I wouldn't be getting a divorce now. That's why we have themarriageforum.com and thedivorceforum.com. Because it's up to you. You're the one who's going to decide exactly how you want this to work out. Do you want 100% reconciliation results by learning and mastering this and staying completely one-pointed and focused on your relationship, meeting more of your partner's needs, becoming the deeply intimate, loving partner that most spouses have always dreamed of? Or do you want to have the same skills so you can create a peaceful, respectful, cooperative, and inexpensive divorce? You know, in so many countries, if you hire an attorney, then your partner has to hire an attorney. Then you have to go to court with your partner and both of your attorneys. I can tell you that in the United States, that little event where you go to court and stand in front of a judge is a $10,000 bill. $10,000. Sometimes it's $5,000 per person, sometimes it's $10,000 per person, depending on the kind of prep work that these attorneys have to do to prepare you. You don't want that. You don't want to waste your family's resources. You don't want to go through this kind of suffering, right? And more importantly, if you have children, what does this do to your children? Your children are now in the middle of a civil war. That's the last thing that you want to do to them, let alone yourself, let alone your family's resources. Now, as a certified mediator, I can tell you that I just mediated a divorce for a couple. They had 5 different points that had to be mediated. I was able to mediate all 5 points with them in a total of 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. Then there was the paralegal fee to get everything ready for court documents. Then there's the filing fee in the state of California. It was so inexpensive they couldn't believe it. Why? Because I worked with the same panic, denial, agony, rage, epiphany, and then the next stage is negotiation. In negotiation, when I taught this, in negotiation, you really negotiate with yourself. As I explained to the wife, and she had 2 coaching sessions before the mediation, and I'm considered to be America's leading marriage and divorce coach. So I let her know, did she really want to fight about this? Did she want to spend what would probably be thousands of dollars to fight about this? Or did she realize she was just angry She wished that she could have some sort of justice. But divorce is not about justice. That's not what it's about at all. It's about making the most peaceful, cooperative, affordable decision and outcome you can make, and they have a child. So they don't want their child to go through this kind of suffering, right? Now, I've worked on so many marriages and so many divorces. So I can tell you, whatever your scenario is, I've probably had some experience with something that's either exactly like yours or very similar. So please send me an email and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. We'd love to. And you've seen the email address on the screen a number of times. And the most important thing for you to understand is you don't have to decide, do you want to be married? Do you want to be divorced? A lot of people think that that's the most important question they have to answer. And ironically, it's not. Since 1999, we have worked with thousands and thousands of people. And almost every person who's unhappy and dissatisfied in a marriage will say, I don't know which I want. Maybe I should call you when I'm sure. And the great news is that the same basic skills you're going to learn in getting along with your spouse and turning your marriage around are identical if you decide that you're going to get a divorce. The only difference is that if you decide you're going to get a divorce, then we have to teach you additional skills. So the ebook that we have, 101 Divorce Secrets, a Survival Guide, will give you a lot of factors from many experts who are dear friends of mine, who are among the most successful divorce experts in California. And California, sadly, is the center, the hotbed of divorce in the United States. And that's because we have Hollywood, and that's because they are under such stress and in the public eye. And let me tell you, the average cost of a divorce in the state of California is $30,000, which is crazy, right? And I wish I could tell you that I didn't know people who had spent a lot more. And why do they spend a lot more? Simply because they don't have the tools and skills of what I call marital mediation. And marital mediation is part of the HEARTSPACE system. There are all sorts of components that you can select. And marital mediation is learning how to motivate and inspire your partner. And it doesn't matter if you're married or you're living together, or if you're dating or whatever, it's still a couple. And in fact, very similar skills are the skills we use if you have a child with problems and you need to motivate and inspire the child to make safer and better decisions. Many of the skills are included in when hope in 12 steps are not enough. And you can see that video on YouTube. It's about how to motivate and inspire someone you love who may have an addiction. And motivate and inspire them, obviously, to get clean, to get sober, to get healthy, and to get their life back. So the same skills will work for you in any different direction, and they'll work for you whatever country you live in, whatever country you come from, because we all have human needs. There's almost no difference between the needs you have if you live in mainland China, or Hong Kong, or Taiwan, or Singapore, or Vietnam, or England, or Germany, or France, or Spain, or Mexico, or Canada, or the United States, and Russia, the Ukraine. Please forgive me if I've left out the country that you're from. I regret it. The only difference is, and this is really fascinating, the difference is what comes first for you, second or third. Now, the way that I teach this is based on Herrmann brain dominance. And we have a really interesting chart for you to look at. And in this chart, you'll be able to see that there are 4 human thinking styles. So whatever part of the world you come from, whatever part of the world you live in. Some of you are more focused on facts and figures and dollars and numbers. Some of you are more focused on action and getting things done. Some of you are more focused on a deep emotional connection to others, empathy, love, passion. And the fourth type is some of you are visionary and experimental and creative and artistic. And believe me, there's no right and there's no wrong. And it's very interesting. Just a moment ago, you saw this example of the Herrmann Brain Dominance Survey. And Herrmann Brain Dominance is used in the United States with 90% of the Fortune companies. And those are our most successful corporations. And there are about 1,000 of them in America. And it's also used with companies in Europe and in Japan. And so I've seen these surveys from people all over, and you see the same kind of brain preferencing. It doesn't matter where people are from. And interestingly enough, people are not, you may have heard that people are left-brained or right-brained, but they're not. People are left-brained or more right-brained or more upper-brained or more lower-brained. And this is based on the Sperry brain model, which is scientific. So we're not talking about something whimsical. This is real. And you will find over time, if you master the HEARTSPACE system, that you're able to actually develop more whole brain function. And whole brain function is what we're looking for, isn't it? Because we need to be able to be data, dollars, numbers, facts, and figures competent. We need to be able to get things done. We need to be able to connect in a deeply and intimate and loving relationship with our friends and family and loved ones. And we need to be creative, and we need to think outside the box. We need to connect to, spiritual things that are non-visible. Because when you put all of these together, then you have all the skills you need. All the skills you need in life, all the skills you need in a relationship. Now, ironically, you might think, I know what's wrong with my partner, I know what's wrong with my spouse. He or she is too different from me, right? I mean, I've heard this a lot from many of you. Well, in fact, here is something that I want you to think about. It's very interesting. If you are very much like your partner, you are going to get along beautifully at home, but you're going to have problems with the outside world. So if you're both visionary, who's going to be making most of the money? Who's going to be investing money? Who's going to be saving money? Who's going to be getting things done? Well, neither of you enough, because that's not your top priority. Or if you reverse it, and I think most people in the world know who Donald Trump is by now because of all his publicity and his TV shows. So if you're the opposite, very, very left-brained, like Donald Trump, then who in the family is going to be the deeply intimate, loving partner? And many of you know that he's had a series of marriages and divorces, unfortunately, because it's very, very difficult. If one partner is only this way, then how do you get along? And the same thing is true if you're both very upper-brained or you're both very lower-brained. But if you take the responsibility, if you make the commitment to learn how to be as whole-brained as possible, and believe me, I've learned this, and this is a good part of what I teach to each of the clients that we've had, then you're able to function not only at home with your priorities, the way that you enjoy using your brain, what you might call your operating system or your MO, but you're also going to be able to function with whatever comes along in your life, whatever challenges there may be. You're going to be able to just deal with it. Now, if you think about love and intimacy, then you may be most interested in our ebook called Ask the Love and Relationship Coach. And Ask the Love and Relationship Coach is an ebook, again, that you can find it on Amazon Library. And you would love to know more about creating an intimate and loving relationship, then you'll be able to do that by reading that book. It's got a lot of examples of what to do in a situation such as yours. And that comes from a series of columns that I've written for the Santa Barbara Life magazine over the last 8 years. And you can find all of those archived at SB for Santa Barbara, familylife.com. And we also have archived my Ask the Marriage Coach columns and my Ask the Divorce Coach columns. You just have to send us an email and we'll tell you the information about that. Now, if you think of this tension in a marriage, we have a wonderful cartoon about it, where you see a husband and wife who are pulling Cupid apart. You know, they'd love to have this amount of love, but who wants to have more love? Who wants to give more? Who wants to receive more? And that's the real question that you have to ask yourself. Neither giving 100% nor receiving 100% is the issue. You have to be able to do 100% of what works in the moment, don't you? That's how you function in your career. No matter what is needed in your office, you have these skills and you're able to attend to that skill set and do it. So in the HEARTSPACE system, in the marriage forum, and in the divorce forum, we're teaching you how to think, listen, speak, and act in a way that creates peace. And peace is the 7th stage of the 7 stages of marriage or divorce. And you'll see this image, and this image is of a yogi, you know, sitting in the lotus position in a deep state of peace. And that's what everybody wants, isn't it? When you decided to get married, didn't you want more love, more joy, more passion, more intimacy, and more peace? You wanted that quality of life, and you can have it. If you carefully consider today who you might marry, for those of you who aren't married yet, these same skills apply. Once you understand your priority of needs, is it for respect? Is it for consideration? Is it for support? Is it for peace? Is it for freedom? Is it for passion? Any one of these 4 quadrants of Herban brain dominance has connected to them a series of needs, and you want to understand that. Because you can't assume that your partner is going to be able to guess it, right? We've all tried. Yes, we want them to just know. It doesn't work. And in fact, we wish that they could tell us what they need. Most people don't have that vocabulary either. So you want to be able to make clear, doable requests. And clear, doable requests are part of the solution, part of the HEARTSPACE system, part of the 6-part conversation, which is a big part of what you'll learn if you watch our YouTube videos and if you watch us on SBTV, Santa Barbara TV. And so as part of this nonprofit purpose that we have, we want you all to have these skills. We want you to have it available. We want you to be able to learn each and every part of this that you may not know right now. The HEARTSPACE system will allow you to generate peace. It will allow you to generate love, cooperation, calmness. And even, and this is so important, even if your first choice is a divorce, remember that you don't want a stranger called a divorce, a judge, making these decisions for you. You don't want a judge deciding your life. You don't want to pay attorneys to fight over what is basically a personal reality about co-parenting or a financial situation. So we have a lot of different skills that have to do with creating solutions about co-parenting that work. Now, most countries these days you'll find that it's normally a 50-50 split, but it doesn't have to be. If there are reasons in your family that a 50-50 split doesn't work, then you need to learn how to motivate and inspire your partner to do something different. You don't want to be in a situation where your spouse is taking 70% in order to get more money in child support. You don't want to be in a situation where a spouse is insisting on 50-50 custody, even if they don't want it, because of financial issues or just to get even with you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. Clients call me in desperation because they've painted themselves into this tiny corner and they don't know how to get out. And these skills get you out of these tricky situations every time, by learning how to motivate and inspire your spouse. You will be able to take the kind of situations that normal families have to run back to court about, and you'll be able to negotiate with your partner so that you can have an outcome that works for you and your children long after they are not your partners. So it's about peace, cooperation, co-parenting, cooperative finances, and if you're together, passion, monogamy, and the tantric lock. So as you understand that these same skills are going to support you with either side of the marriage coin, whether it's loving marriage or peaceful divorce, you begin to see in your own circumstances, in your own home life, you begin to get the idea, gosh, I could have turned that around. Instead of getting triggered and fighting, I could have gotten triggered, calmed myself down, and calmed him down. I could have felt scared, brought myself back to peace, became calm again, and calmed her down. You begin to see that. It's an entirely different way of operating. No matter what is going on in your family, whether it is a financial issue, whether it is an issue of intimacy and passion, whether it's about career, it doesn't matter, because your responses are going to be either peaceful and calm and it's no big deal and you've handled it before and you can handle it again, you've lost a job, you know you'll get another one, or you go into fear, anger, or sadness, which are the three human negative emotions. And we call them, panic and agony and rage. But you understand what they are: fear, anger, and sadness. And your job is to master the ability in what I call the 4.5 minutes to peace program. You've got 4.5 minutes to bring yourself back. And during that 4.5 minutes, don't speak, don't text, don't email, don't phone. So in that 4.5 minutes, while you're struggling to bring yourself back to peace, you've got to be silent. And if you're in the same room with this other person, this may be a great opportunity to excuse yourself and leave the room while you pull yourself back together. Not because it's bad to express yourself when you're upset. It just doesn't help. It doesn't work. So it depends what your real goal is. Most people who have temper tantrums don't have a goal for peace. They have a goal to be heard. But ultimately, does that help? Do you want to do that? Is it worth it? We find over and over again, first of all, it's expensive. Letting it fly like that is really expensive. If you're in a community property environment, California is, many of the states in the United States are, other countries are as well. So if you're in a community property environment, then if you are going to let fly and have a fight and not care about your husband or wife's response, you are looking at losing a good amount of assets. You know, people have lost their homes about it. They have lost their stock portfolios and bond portfolios about it. You know, people who were crazy about their race cars and their airplanes have watched them go down the drain in a divorce. A lot of people don't realize that in a divorce, at least 50% of you will become homeless. I don't mean that you won't have any resources necessarily, but if you're getting a divorce, one of you is going to leave that house, and often you don't have enough money to hold on to the house at all. So both partners are going to become literally homeless. Nobody wants that. No matter how angry you are at your partner, I guarantee you don't want that. And in our book, 101 Divorce Secrets, a Survival Guide, and at our website, thedivorceforum.com, you will learn a lot of strategies that work so that you can avoid this entire miserable experience that nobody would sign on for. Now, if you're interested in learning how to really transform your marriage, either through private coaching with us or through our book, The Merry-Go-Round, in The Merry-Go-Round, you're going to see how to transform these situations that right now may look hopeless to you. How to reframe it. How to listen to your partner in a way that you hear your partner's needs instead of all the words you may be forced to listen to. How do you express yourself in a way that you can be heard? Now, it may seem very, very complicated, but in fact it isn't. You know, driving a car, to me, was so complicated, I had to have about 30 driving lessons. And then I went through torture to go from driving on the streets in New York to driving in the Hamptons where there's no traffic to driving in California. First on streets and then on the freeway. And now I'm a fairly competent driver, right? So you're going to have these experiences where you're learning how to think, learning how to listen, learning how to speak, and learning how to act. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You don't have to think about looking in your rearview mirror, do you? I think you may be interested to hear how some really high-profile people have been able to use these same skills to create peace. So even if you're not a rock star and you're not a Victoria's Secret model and you're not one of the big executive producers responsible for blockbuster films, please understand that they have the same problems you do. Whether or not you're, doing TV behind the cameras or in front of the cameras, they have the same challenges you do. And I think one of my favorite stories is one of the really big TV shows in America. The guy that is in charge of all of the production, camera and sound, is a former client. And he told me that he learned more from these sessions on how to turn his relationship around, his marriage around, than he had from the show that he's part of. And the show that he's part of is one of those, supposedly self-help gurus, a really, really, really famous one. And I want to tell you, they're still married. They have a wonderful marriage. And even when there have been, real problems with drugs, because when I say that I worked with a major rock star, you can imagine this has been a huge factor. And teaching him the skills he needed, and teaching his fiancée the skills she needed, in spite of all the drama and everything that they had gone through, so they could listen and they could be heard, was a huge, huge miracle. Because when I first began, they were, hundreds, thousands of miles apart physically, and couldn't even come into the same room without each having an attorney present to represent them. And the whole purpose of a mediation, here I am a certified mediator, I don't need attorneys there. You don't need attorneys there when you have a mediator who knows what he or she is doing. But that's the level of enmity that these two had. They were so scared about what would happen, and so angry about what would happen, and so sad about what had been happening. And as a result of the HEARTSPACE system and this mediation level, they were able to get together and be alone and really talk through it. Now, if you're going to be in a mediation, you know, the triumphant one, as I think I said, that I just handled, where there was a 40-minute mediation that included a co-op and land and property. And to have all of that finalized in 40 minutes is unheard of. And it's so interesting, the kind of decisions that people make. You never really understand in advance the kind of decisions people are going to make until you're in that moment using the HEARTSPACE system. And I remember doing a huge family mediation. There were 4 adult children and the mom, and I had done some coaching for the mom and for one of the adult children, one of the daughters. And there was $1 million on the table. And one of the family members owed the rest of the family members $1 million, had borrowed money from the family trust. And everybody approved the borrowing years and years ago. I think it was about 10 years ago. But they hadn't approved the fact that not a penny had been paid back. So I assumed when I arrived, and this was a different state from California, so I had to fly in and fly out, and I assumed that we were going to end up dividing the $1 million in some way. So he was going to have to pay a percentage of it. Or maybe he was going to have to pay a little bit every year, or a little bit every month. That's normally, you know, that's when you mediate a financial situation, that's kind of the normal thing you look at. In fact, I was supposed to have 2 days to accomplish this. When I arrived, they told me, no, in fact, everybody had to go to church on Sunday. We had to finish it on Saturday. So it was basically, I had 12 hours. And in the 11th hour, every single one of the adult children decided that they loved their brother, they had missed him so much, they saw how much he was suffering, and they forgave the debt, 100%. And that, to me, is a miracle of the human dynamic of the HEARTSPACE system, where you can really calm yourself down before you speak, really hear the needs of the other person, and really be heard by the other person until you come to a solution that truly worked. And I honestly can tell you, it worked for every one of them. Now, I've done so many different kinds of situations that we are, you know, given at the marriage forum and at the divorce forum. We have 30 pages of signed testimonials, so please send us an email. We'll be happy, we'll be thrilled, of course, to send you the testimonials. So whether it's about parenting, about intimacy, about monogamy, about marriage, about family scenarios, we have so many examples. Now, one thing that was among the most touching of all the testimonials as we approach the Christmas season, this was a woman who tragically had been married to a man who was very violent and very cruel to her and to her 2 children. And she was fighting a custody case in 2 states when I met her. And she was herself a mediator. So she had a certain amount of these skills, but she was still fighting a custody case in 2 states. She had 2 attorneys. She was using up every single penny that her family had, and it was a disaster. You know, it was a disaster that she could not see the end to it. And I came up with a completely different strategy for her. I taught her how to go to the law library in the city in Connecticut where she lived to look for case law loopholes that would allow her to support her attorneys who were not finding any loopholes. And unfortunately, it was a very tricky case. And who would care more about her outcome than she did? Nobody. So she spent a good 40 hours at the law library in the city in Connecticut where she lived, looking for loopholes. At the same time, she motivated and inspired her attorneys to look for loopholes. Look at the case law, go to the law library, in her case, have their paralegals do it. And because she didn't want to just trust that it was going to be done and let's hope for the best, I motivated her to put her time in as well. Well, she found a loophole. It was a miraculous, truly miraculous loophole. And if you want more information, please send me an email and I'll let you know. And she sent me this beautiful picture of herself and her 2 children at Christmas and said, only because of the marriage forum, only because of the skills of the divorce forum, am I spending this Christmas with my children. And I want to tell you that this is possible for you. Under no circumstances do you have to go down for the count. Under no circumstances do you need to assume that disaster is coming and there's nothing to do but just let it hit you. Now, in different situations, again, you could be tremendously famous, like this Victoria's Secret model, where you have a completely different set of needs. But is it really different, or is it just with more zeros? That's really the truth. Whether you've got a lot of power and a lot of money and you have a public identity, or whether you're just a lovely person living in a small town, any place in the world, you want to be sure that you focus on all parts of the brain in whole brain thinking. You want to make sure that the upper left, that blue quadrant, you're getting data, dollars, numbers, facts, and figures handled. You want to be sure that you're looking outside the box. You want to look at that visionary upper right yellow quadrant. Look at the whole situation. Look at the whole vision you have for your life, for your children's lives, for your future, for your family. Make sure you look at your feelings, their feelings. Remember, as I said in love, unconditional love, you care just as much about their needs getting met as you do about your own needs getting met, right? So it's their feelings and your feelings. And only when you do all that can you possibly get an action plan together. Please don't create an action plan until you really have thought through the action and the options. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, what about people who are just meeting for the first time? You're dating, you'd like to know more about dating, and in fact, we have a system called the pro-dating system. And we call it that because you have a successful career, you have a successful life. You want to use those professional level skills in dating. In other words, you want to date and be intelligent about it. You want to be safe about it. You want to be smart about it. You want to be proactive about it. So I work with a number of people on pro-dating. And you can see some of those questions and answers in Ask the Love and Relationship Coach. You'll be able to see that as well. So in the Ask the Love and Relationship Coach ebook, that again you can get on the Amazon library, you'll be able to see, what do I have to think about with dating? What do I have to consider with dating? Well, dating, you consider your key needs, the prioritization of those needs, and whether this potential partner meets them. Now, people who use online dating, I actually help them create the profile. I'm working with a number of people on this right now. I help them learn to read profiles so they see exactly what that person is saying about himself or herself. Is this likely to be a match? Then I teach them how to communicate, how to write emails, to motivate and inspire that person to respond. We craft conversations. And all of these things you want to do so that you really can go through life in the most peaceful and cooperative way. Don't you? so that you can date, so that you can fall in love, so that you can marry, so that you can stay married, so that you can raise a family if you want to. And thank you so much. And do send us an email and let us know any questions you might have. Thank you so much for watching all this information about the Marriage Forum Incorporated, which is a nonprofit corporation, a 501c3. And all of your donations are tax deductible in the United States. And we are just so excited that you've been able to see some of the different courses and trainings that we offer. And we do have 160 videos thanks to Santa Barbara TV. And so please let us know what has made the biggest impact for you. Please send us your questions, your feedback, and your comments, either at YouTube or at either of our websites through email. We have themarriageforum.com and we have thedivorceforum.com. So either one that really resonates with you, we would love to hear from you. And you know, my name is Susan Allan, and you will get a personal comment and response from me. You will get it from me because I am the one who is really excited to connect with you and to have you have this difference in your life. And you could make a big difference for us as well. Perhaps you'd like to translate any of our books or our trainings into a language that isn't English. Because at the moment, everything we do is in English. Perhaps you'd like to learn more. Perhaps you'd like to learn how to be a marriage coach or a divorce coach with these skills. Or perhaps you'd like training so that you can turn your own marriage, your own relationship around. And of course, the biggest difference that you could make today would be clicking the donate button on YouTube and making a contribution of any size so that we can make a bigger and bigger difference every single year. And we wish you the happiest and healthiest holiday for you and all your loved ones, and we will hold you in our heart space.